Years, oil set the price of empire. This week, that ended. The United Arab Emirates exited OPEC. The petrodollar architecture began to unwind. In Washington, a State Department initiative called Pax Silica is wiring the same nations into a new architecture, built on compute, semiconductors, critical minerals. From India through the Middle East to Europe, a corridor called IMEC is being built right now to move it. Ports, pipelines, rail, data centers, fiber. The block has signatories, the corridor has construction crews. The settlement layer is being tokenized. On Monday, 2 knights of the Roundtable ride to map the architecture being built around you. Courtenay Turner, Patrick Wood, Monday, May 18th, 5 p.m. Central. Bring the questions. Help us overwhelm the censors. Pax Silica, IMEC, the new economics of technocracy. See you Monday.
Hello, and welcome to the Technocracy Roundtable. We are a few nights short, but we have the very important one, who is, of course, the OG knight who has been fighting technocracy and the global powers and warning us for decades. Patrick Wood will be joining me very shortly. He's also my partner in crime in documenting the actions of the technocrats, and we co-authored this book, The Final Betrayal, How Technocracy Destroyed America. It is a cautionary tale, but unfortunately, things seem to be playing out in real time, and we're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to talk about Pax Silica and this Trump going over to China recently, and it looks like a merger of sorts, so we're going to talk about that and break it all down. Yeah, let's bring Patrick on first, and then we'll get right to it.
Greetings.
Greetings. There's no shortage of things to talk about, unfortunately.
Yep. We have a great show tonight lined up
Yeah.
for you. It's going to be amazing, I think.
I think so, yes. Hopefully bring a lot of clarity, because I think people have a lot of questions about what's going on here in terms of this Trump going over and meeting with Xi Jinping. And of course, all the Wall Street bros were sitting in the back seat, proverbially, and you've got all the tech bros in the front seat. So I'm sure that's very curious to a lot of people. But that represents the new architecture that's being erected, right, for this Pax Silica, which ostensibly will be replacing Pax Americana. I'm sure many are familiar with Pax Romana, Pax Americana, Pax Britannia was first, right? Then Pax Americana.
Yes.
And now we've got Pax Silica, as in silicon, which is the, compute architecture and the AI infrastructure that seems to be the new control grid for the world.
Yes, and nobody really saw this coming with the announcement. I think it was on late December, when Pax Silica was announced.
Yes.
Who pays attention at that time of the year anyway? But it kind of snuck up on us. Here it is, and we're going to tell you all about it. This is a major initiative at the State Department under
Yes.
Donald Trump, of course, but we're going to break this down for you so you can understand what on earth is going on here with Pax Silica. That's crazy. And in the past, you talk about Pax Americana, Pax Britannica. It was peace through strength.
Right.
That was the military strength. This
Right.
is not military strength, but they're casting in that light that somehow the silica part of it is going to enforce peace going forward, not with military might, but with silicon might.
Yes, and
That
it's
makes sense?
interesting that you bring up, yeah, right. It's interesting that you bring it up that it was, December, late December, which is that's historically when they give us these beautiful Christmas gifts. Isn't that when they gave us the Federal Reserve Act and, yeah, our income tax? Yeah, so I guess it's their idea of Christmas gifts to the American people.
Thanks a lot. We 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 can live without it, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah. Those are gifts I think we could all live without. Well, maybe we should start with, I think one of the main things that we had discussed was that this is, I think, a concept. I know I've been trying to hammer this for a very long time, and it's confusing to a lot of people. This idea of private property, and
Yes.
this is really what it's all hinged upon, is private property. But private property is a legal structure. This is contractarian. This is voluntaristic, and it does come from the Lockean strain of our founding, of the United States founding. And this is what you hear a lot of freedom fighters, a lot of libertarians, the techno-libertarian community are very much championing this. I'm not opposed to private property, of course, but we have discussed that sovereign property is really what needs to be defended.
Yes.
And this is something much deeper. And this is something our founding fathers recognized as well, which is why they didn't say our unalienable rights were life, liberty, and private property. They said life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And so we're going to play a video. In this video, they don't use the term, but just for those who are watching, the term that when they say human flourishing, that is what pursuit of happiness is about. And that Aristotelian Greek term was called eudaimonia, and it actually means human flourishing towards virtue, but it's an extension of artikaria, which was self-sufficiency. So let's play this video and then we can discuss it.
The State Department has a formal name for the architecture being built right now, Pax Silica. It is a U.S.-led framework designed to secure the supply chains and physical infrastructure of artificial intelligence. The diplomatic negotiations happening between world leaders are over physical geography. They are mapping out who controls rare earth elements, trade corridors, and the heavy hardware that runs the code. This diagram outlines the 6 layers of that architecture. At the foundation are critical minerals and energy grids. Above that sits compute and semiconductor fabrication, followed by network infrastructure, consumer devices, capital allocation, and finally the financial rails that process transactions. The compute layer relies entirely on accelerator and GPU hardware. This puts the corporate executives who manufacture and control that physical architecture squarely at the center of modern statecraft. Financing fabrication plants, data centers, and undersea cables requires immense funding. Asset managers and financial institutions provide the capital to build the infrastructure, and they establish the payment networks to monetize it. All of this builds a global operating system. The question is, what happens to the individual within it? We have to ask if this structure treats people as independent actors or as subjects to be managed. Human independence inside this new infrastructure comes down to a single word: property. This visualization shows how modern law defines private property merely as a title held by consent. This allows a person to own a fractional digital token that pays a yield, while giving them zero authority over the actual asset. A fund manager or an administrator sits in between. Sovereign property is something entirely different. It is unmediated authority over a productive asset. The owner has the direct right to use it, exclude others from it, and make decisions about it without a smart contract or corporate layer in the way. Legal title gives you a stream of passive income. Sovereign property gives you actual autonomy. Mistaking a legal claim for true sovereign ownership creates a blind spot. It allows the architecture of the AI age to convert independent citizens into managed tenants, while leaving them with the illusion that they still own their assets. History shows a recurring pattern with political concepts. A prestigious word is kept alive, but the substance beneath it is quietly replaced. The word still commands respect, even as it licenses a completely different reality. John Locke performed this operation on the concept of natural law. He stripped away its original meaning, which was rooted in the real natures and ends of things, and replaced it with a system based entirely on human will and consent. Because legitimacy became based purely on consent, the actual substance of property, which is control, could be legally unbundled. An owner could consent to sign away their authority to intermediaries piece by piece. Traditional legal frameworks were built to guard against physical seizure. When property is hollowed out through voluntary individual contracts, the alarms never ring because no visible coercion takes place. This liquidation of autonomy happens impersonally. Capital simply flows into the definitional gaps left by a system that only measures consent. This legal vulnerability maps directly onto the Pax Silica architecture. The new hardware and software layers require a system where ownership can be separated from control. Domestic legislation creates the legal framework for this separation. Bills framed as providing regulatory clarity for digital assets, like the Clarity Act, actually create the statutory machinery to make assets trackable, programmable, and censorable. Through tokenization, smart contracts, and click-wrap agreements, true ownership is converted into user access. This access is conditional, revocable by system administrators. At the top of this machinery, sovereign domain technocratic boards are being established. These bodies are designed to manage commerce and capital across borders, operating outside of existing frameworks like the UN or the WTO. People who fiercely defend the modern definition of private property are often defending the exact legal mechanism being used to strip away their independence. Autonomy is liquidated voluntarily. A nation of sovereign owners is converted into a class of passive rentiers, managed by a technocratic layer that controls the assets. The authors of the Declaration of Independence recognized this definitional trap. They chose the phrase, "the pursuit of happiness," instead of property, to anchor rights in human flourishing, rather than in a vulnerable legal title. They drew on an older philosophical tradition. Aristotle argued for autarkia, the material self-sufficiency of a household. He held that this material independence is the strict precondition for a person to stand as a free citizen, rather than a dependent. They relied on James Harrington's observation: political power strictly follows the distribution of property. If property concentrates into the hands of a few intermediaries, the regime becomes an oligarchy. The optics of democracy might remain, but the underlying power structure shifts. Finally, they applied Scottish common sense realism, which insists that foundational rights are objective realities. They are not constructs that can simply be redefined or contracted away by human will. Together, these principles prove that political freedom requires the wide distribution of real, unmediated property. Holding a fractional yield is not enough to maintain a free commonwealth. The tokenized private property driving the AI stack offers the population a stream of income, but it strips them of their independence, running opposite to the founder's design. Defending against this operation requires a conceptual correction. We have to start using the term sovereign property. Sovereign property plainly names the unmediated authority over an asset. It is a tangible reality that is too solid to be hollowed out by a fund manager or buried in a smart contract. The physical architecture of the AI age is rapidly locking into place. The groups who define property will dictate the shape of the regime. Reclaiming the true definition of property is the only way to ensure the people living on the rails of this new civilization remain sovereign actors, rather than its permanent, managed tenants.
Excellent, excellent.
Right.
So what are we going to do from this day forward? We're not going to use private property for what used to be private property before tokenization came along. We're going to use sovereign property now. This makes perfect sense to me. And basically, as they co-opt the concept of private property to make something that was never in existence in the first place, we'll fall back on sovereign property.
Yeah, I think it would be really helpful for people. We had talked to you had done a speech and you had talked about the use of fructus, right? And how the abuses. This is going again back to Pax Romana, actually, right? This was the whole concept of abuses was actually the ownership. They had access. They had controlling rights of the property itself, and then you had the uses, which is essentially like what the tokens would be, right? You don't actually have any controlling rights, and then maybe you can get some yield from it, but you don't actually have controlling rights. So, yeah, if you want to talk about that, I think that's very relevant.
It really is. When people talk about, well, let's talk about when Trump made tokenization of income streams from his hotels, when it was one of his hotels in not the Mideast, I can't remember where the Maldives, perhaps. Nevertheless, when he tokenized his income stream going off this property, he probably tokenized some of the assets as well of the building itself. But the people that bought those shares in the proposition, well, they were happy to get their income, right?
Sure.
They made an investment and they get some income out of it. That's a cool thing. And some people say, well, hey, the token's forever. You know, we can get an income for the rest of our life, and on every token we can get our hands on. Well, the problem is you don't own that property. Not like Trump Tower, you don't own that now. You can't say that you live there. You have no rights at all to paint the walls or whatever. And this is bastardizing the whole concept of private property. And and this certainly will not be. We're not talking about your home in particular right yet. This is in the cards. Yeah, no, this is in the cards going forward. But you see all these houses that have been bought up by BlackRock, Blackstone, et cetera. They've all been put into pools, asset pools, and where rental properties at this point. That these are the homes that were shook out during the last financial crisis, and they've been all tokenized at this point. Nobody will ever own them in the sense that they're sovereign property. There will be tenants that can live there in these homes, maybe long term. Maybe you have a 10-year contract or a lifetime contract to live in that property, but you'll never own it again. This is the problem. It'll never be your asset to say you have the sovereign rights to manage that property. So when something gets tokenized, you can't eat your token. You can't do anything other than just put it on the wall, I guess. And when Larry Fink says that everything that can be tokenized will be tokenized, he means it. He means it. She's not joking around. He's not just spitting out hyperbole. He means it. Why can't we take him at his word? The New York Stock Exchange will, by the way, will be tokenized by the end of this year.
Yes.
This is huge. This is the bulk of assets that'll be tokenized, like over $20 trillion of all the stocks on the New York Stock Exchange. This is incredible. This is just, I don't know. I can't say exactly how that's going to work out economically,
Right.
but it's going to be bad.
It is going to be bad. Yeah. And the DTCC has their app now, right? It's like the collateral app that's going to be for tokenization. So, yeah. Collateral app chain is, that's what it is. So, yeah, so they're moving very fast on their tokenization. I don't remember the name of the company. I was trying to look it up, but I know there's a company because it's my home county, Bergen County, where they've already bought up, like hundreds of thousands of private properties, and they've tokenized them all, and they've fractionalized the ownership. And BlackRock, it's like a subsidiary of BlackRock. But I don't know the name of the company, unfortunately. Yeah, I'm sure it's not the only one. I'm sure it's just an example. I happen to, recognize it because it was my home county, so so it stuck out to me. But I'm sure it's not the only one. That's the plan. So
let me ask you a question. If something gets tokenized, let's say it's a block of property, 1,000 acres somehow. Once it gets tokenized, can it be untokenized at that point, do you think?
I don't
I
know.
mean,
I don't know how
once the shares are sold all over the world, there's a problem here.
Yeah, I don't know how it could, because you're talking about it's an infrastructure, right? So How
Yeah.
would you change over once you've changed essentially you're changing the monetary system. So,
Yes. This is like taking a feather pillow
mhm.
into a windstorm, cutting the bag open, let it go. You'll never see those feathers again
Right,
in
right.
one place, right?
Yeah,
So once a property is tokenized, it has owners all over potentially all over the world, and all
right,
these funds and maybe stuff put into 401ks and IRAs and that sort of stuff. Once those tokens are distributed to individual owners who say,
right,
wait a minute, you can't take our tokens away from us. We paid for them, you know?
right.
Once the process is done, you cannot reverse it. This is my big point here. You can't take it back at that point.
Right. And I think the fractionalization element is what makes it super complicated because now it's not like you're transferring the ownership. If it was just your property now being transferred to a bank, I mean, now it's still an institution versus a private owner, but there still might be some sort of transactional prospects for reversing and reclaiming ownership. Kind of like a reverse mortgage, kind of a case, right? But if it's fractionalized, now you've got 401ks, you've got individuals, you've got hedge funds, you have all these
Banks,
different
yeah.
banks, yeah, companies who might have foreign entities that might have ownership of one thing, one entity. And the analogy I always like to use is that estate lawyers exist for a reason, because you would think that shared assets would be something that loved ones could probably reconcile, but that's usually very messy, and that's why estate lawyers exist. So I don't know how that's going to work out when you've got complete strangers and entities. You're not just dealing with people, you're dealing with, as we said, hedge funds and yeah.
Exactly. So when a house is purchased, normally in our former world, you would have a title. You would take it
Right.
to the title company where all your escrows, the papers would be deposited, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they would issue you after a search, by the way, to make sure that the property is legal and that sort of stuff, for you to
Sure.
own it. Then you get a title insurance policy that says, guarantees you own that house, period, end of subject, forever. And that stays in the county recorder's office
Mm-hmm.
in perpetuity, right?
Right.
This is your title that you own whatever that property, the sovereign right to own that property, right?
Right.
So when something is tokenized, like for instance, all the 17,000 homes that were bought up by people like BlackRock, and they put it into portfolios that they took all those titles, and you say, well, the title exists somewhere. It probably does at this point, but it's in the hands of the BlackRocks now. They've
Right.
taken all these titles and they put them a big bundle of paper. They could put them in the incinerator at this point, probably if they wanted to. But it shows you just how worthless they are at that point. But here's my idea. You put them in a bundle, you keep them forever, and then as the asset parts are sold out to the rest of the world, then you become the manager of those properties. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
has to maintain those properties. They're
Right.
in charge now of maintaining the property. You have an air conditioner goes broke. Well, they're going to call somebody. You're going to call somebody if you live in that house and say, "Hey, my air conditioner broke. Can you come fix it?" Or my plumbing, or my water heater blew, and you put all kinds of water damage in my house. So
Mm-hmm.
they're going to send somebody out to your house. Well, who does this kind of stuff? Well, you're talking now the regional maintenance companies that are contracted by the BlackRocks to take care of your property.
Right.
Do you think you'll ever trust them to do the job effectively and
Well,
efficiently and replacing your dishwasher with one that's comparable or not? I don't think so. This
no,
is why
no.
many homeowners today, not owners, but the people that are renting these properties, these homes from the BlackRocks of the world right now, they're screaming bloody murder because their houses are not being cared for like they should.
Well, and I think also the managerial rights. So if you own property and you want to farm on your land, or you own property that has that's mineral rich or oil rich, and you want to drill, you want to mine on your own property, that should be your prerogative. It's your property. But if you don't have the controlling rights, then you wouldn't. They could deny you access to your own land.
Exactly. This is the concept of sovereign property, for sure. This is
Yeah.
this is it. This is it in a nutshell. Sovereign property means you have the final say on anything that goes onto that property. Period. The
Yeah.
government should not tell you how to farm your land. The corporations shouldn't to tell you how much fertilizer you should use. Nobody should dictate the crops that you plant, etc.
Mm-hmm.
But when
No.
you have a manager over you at this point, you become, if you're a farmer, for instance, you'll be less than a sharecropper at that point. That was an evil thing in the centuries past,
Sure.
where you're sharing the crop. You had to grow the crop, then you got a share of it, but the bulk of it went to the landlord.
Right.
Mhm.
Yes. So let's explain to people about Pax Silica. But before we do, somebody actually sent me this that I thought was really interesting. It's a book. It's called it's Daniel from the Bible. It's by J. Vernon McGee.
Oh, yeah.
And this is what it said. And I thought this was interesting. So the line in here. Now I know a lot of people are familiar with the last stage where everything is clay or sand, right?
Yes.
But this line right here, he says, there is no movement at all. It is simply awe-inspiring, glamorous, terrific, and stupendous. The head was of gold, the breast and arms of silver, and the belly and thighs of brass, the legs of iron, and the feet were iron and clay mixed together. The image, therefore, consisted of very strange assortments of metals. It was not an alloy of metals, but a metallic image of four metals plus a silicon, that is sand or clay. I didn't realize he actually used the term silicon.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Like, wow.
I've personally listened to many of Vernon McGee's tapes in the
Okay.
past. He's dead now, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but he was a brilliant Southern preacher.
Okay.
He was full of wisdom. He was just an absolute kick to listen to. Just the stuff that he came up with, the way that he expressed stuff. But
Okay.
this is probably a very sharp observation. Yes, the
Yeah.
the feet of that statue is constructed so it could not hold together
Mm-hmm.
correctly, right?
Right.
If you have if you have a head of gold, or well, if the head of gold, solid gold fits together just fine. You don't break it. I don't. There's no way you can break a head
No.
like gold.
Gold solid.
But when civilization goes down the statue to the feet, this is representing the end of the civilization where the fifth kingdom or the final kingdom comes in play. It's called the revived Roman Empire. The feet are made of iron and clay, and they tend not to stick together correctly, right?
Right.
So there's huge tension in it, but nevertheless, they do stick together for time.
Mm-hmm.
Silica now, this is a really interesting concept because yes, silica is all over the place right now. Yeah, the AI world is based on
Yeah.
silicon.
That's the conductor
Yeah.
for all of the wires, the chips, everything.
Mhm.
We have the Pax Silica Declaration. Pax Silica is the Department of State's flagship effort on AI and supply chain security, advancing new economic security consensus amongst allies and trusted partners. And this is state.gov This is the Pax Silica, U.S. Department of State. So this is an official declaration from the Department of State. And he says this is Jacob Helber, who's under the Secretary for Economic Affairs. He says if the 20th century ran on oil and steel, the 21st century runs on compute and the minerals that feed it. This historic declaration hails a new economic security, consensus ensuring aligned partners to build the AI ecosystems of tomorrow, from energy and critical minerals to high-end manufacturing and models. And then they go on to explain the declaration. But before we get into that, I think it's really interesting because, we were talking about the AI action plan, months and months ago. And in that, he talks about the stack, right? That third pillar was the stack that he was going to export to the world. And essentially, America would run the global technocracy. It looks like that's what's coming to fruition now, and especially with his meeting with Xi in China.
It is, and one by one, you see the signatories at the bottom here. This is very telling because not all countries have jumped at this chance to be part of our orbit, if you will. But look at the list includes Australia, Finland, Greece, India. Some of these are BRIC nations, by the way. Just keep that in mind, okay? Israel, Japan, Norway, Qatar, Republic of Korea, Singapore, Sweden, the Philippines, the UAE, and the United Kingdom. And lo and behold, look here at this non-signatory participants.
Taiwan.
Taiwan. Uh-oh. Who wants to conquer Taiwan?
Yeah.
This is very strange. So they set this in place, and they've invited people to come to the party to be controlled by American AI. This is not a free giveaway, believe me, of technology. Any country that signs this signatory, including like big ones too, like Australia is huge, right? And some are just important because they're not necessarily geographically huge, but they're just huge countries, important.
Powerful. Yeah.
Any country now that accepts this, they're going to take our AI stack. What does this mean? It means the infrastructure, like the chips and the build out of the data centers, okay, that consume all the energy and the water and stuff in the environment. And then you put the operating system on top of that. Then you put the AI applications on top of that. Then you put the consumer and the control applications on top of that. And you top the whole thing off with a whipped cream and a cherry, I guess. This is the whole Monty, folks. They're giving all this stuff away to these countries. However, there's a problem. They're not going to give that away and just lose control of it. In other words, all these countries have to sign first this declaration. They have to sign an agreement that they will abide by the user maintenance policies or whatever that are set out by Pax Silica in the first place. In other words, these are the permissions, right?
Right.
And if any country
access denied.
yeah, so the community standards, so to speak, right? Well, they haven't delivered that to them yet. They signed up for it, but they haven't seen or read all of these community standards. And if anybody bucks us, the American providers of technology in the first place, if they misuse this technology, go rogue with it, they use it for other purposes, they're going to shut them down in a country minute. What do you think that would do for the country if they've already embedded the AI in their society? They can't possibly be cut off at that point. They're going to have to knuckle under, right?
Well, and I think, oh, sorry, go on, yeah.
No, go.
Oh, I was just going to say, just to make this really concrete for people, it's like when people enter in all of these platforms, You decide you're going to use a social media platform, for instance, and you've been using Twitter or Instagram to promote your business for several years, and then they have a new update and it's a new terms of service. And most people don't read them, right? They just click agree terms and they enter. You violate those terms, you're locked out. If you read them and you see something in there, you say, oh, wait, this doesn't align with my values. I'm not okay with it. Now you're completely locked out of your entire infrastructure,
Hmm.
which might be your social outlet. It might be your, way of gaining information. It may be your marketing for your business. I mean, whatever it is, it's something you're using daily and you're going to have your access denied. This is happening already in cars. People who have these hybrid, like a Tesla, most of them are user agreements. So if you have like a GPS, for instance, in the car and you're on it's a service. So you pay membership for the service. You pay a monthly fee, or maybe it's a yearly fee, depending on whatever structure you've agreed to. If you don't pay or you don't agree to the updated terms and services, you no longer have access to that part of your car.
Hmm.
So,
That's
yeah.
right.
So this is at the state level what they're executing. That's
By the way,
just now. Yeah.
if your cohort there could find a picture of this State Department official, let's see, his name is what's his name again? Jacob Hellberg.
Helberg, yeah.
This is a strange individual that well, he didn't come up with it, right? He's an undersecretary for
Right.
economic
Yeah.
affairs, right?
Hmm.
This is in my wheelhouse now,
Hmm.
economic affairs. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just saying, I'm just saying,
Yeah. Yeah.
if you can find a picture of this, put it up. This guy is the strangest looking guy you ever saw in your world.
Oh.
He's like a robot.
Oh, he is very intense.
This is so weird. Is he? I mean, is he real,
He's intense.
or is it Plastic Man? I don't
Cyborg.
know. I'll tell you what, but it's interesting. I
Cyborg.
know it's interesting. Jacob, by the way, is gay, definitely. I mean,
Okay.
that's documented. That's not.
Right.
I'm
Right.
not spreading rumors here. He really is gay.
Yeah.
I mean, he's really gay, really gay.
Mhm.
But he's kind of made up in a way that just looks plastic. I don't know. It's very, very
Yeah.
weird. But when you talk about Pax Silica, he's the perfect kind of poster child for the whole program. It just-
He's the technoplastic being.
yeah, exactly. You
Yeah.
you you mentioned that in one of your articles. Yeah, technoplastic.
Yeah. There you
Oh
go.
boy. Okay, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I hadn't looked at him before. That's yeah, definitely interesting. Yeah, so I think that that's an interesting concept for people to wrap their heads around, because the idea of Pax Silica, it's this new infra. Yeah, I mean, he really looks like, yeah, very, very plastic cyborgy, um, not human. But yeah, I'm not trying to be insulting, but that's just what it
He, look-
evokes.
he looks a little bit like Data. Remember Data on the old Star Trek movies?
Yeah.
Data was like, he just
Yeah.
turned his head.
The
Okay.
bobblehead.
Yeah.
Yes. Well,
Okay.
I think this is really important for people to wrap their head around, because when you talk about Pax Silica being this new global infrastructure, you're actually having these essentially, like, a smart contract is replacing the governance infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right. So, I
Yes.
mean, well, you say that and it sounds so simple, but I mean, that's pretty mind blowing to really think about that. That we're,
There he
yeah,
is. Oh my gosh. Ouch. I hit that on the head, didn't I?
yeah, pretty much.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, boy.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so let's look around the world just for a second. Who
yeah.
who who are the countries who have really fallen into the pit, literally, of surveillance, craziness, whatever? How about the UK? How
Hmm.
about Australia? Australia is just off the rails right now with dystopian stuff going on. censorship, railroading the citizens and whatever. They're all under surveillance already. And here's two examples: Australia and the United Kingdom. They're going to come under the control now of AI systems that were invented here in America. Lock, stock, and barrel. They're given the blueprints for the data centers, as well as how they're going to stock them, how they're going to put them together. This is like a fine science at this point to do that, but they're going to give them all the architecture of how to build these crazy data centers in the first place, and then how to run them, how to run their stack, for instance, Palantir software, maybe Anthropic software, maybe OpenAI or whatever. It doesn't matter what platform it is, but they're going to coach and monitor and discipline, if necessary, these nation states on how to control their populations with AI. You think they have a head start in the UK? You think they have a head start in Australia? Really? Israel is another country that has huge technocratic influence as well.
Yep.
Singapore has been long considered a technocracy. They have no privacy there whatsoever, no sovereign property either, to speak of. The Philippines is a huge area to dominate. The UAE is one of the most important, if not the most important country in the Middle East right now. And we just saw that, the UAE just dropped out of OPEC a couple of weeks ago. That's a huge story as well. This is related to Pax Silica.
Right.
So the bum's rush is at this point. This is my opinion. I realize that's okay. I can have opinion.
Yes.
My opinion is, at this point, President Trump is building empire. Pure and simple. He's building empire as he goes. His empire is based on technocracy. That's the problem. And AI is the backbone, the enforcement of technocracy.
Right.
I know. So here you go. We have a large part of the world at this point is taking our AI technology stack. Oh boy, we're in for a rough ride, I think.
What are the implications of that? So essentially, if there's an AI empire that's being built, and you're saying that Trump, your feeling is that Trump is essentially behind it, creating it. What does that mean for the future? I mean, Trump won't be president for, he can't run again. So, this is obviously has implications. I know we've got the trilogy of boards, which he's on the board of peace, essentially as the world monarch. So, yeah.
I know.
I know that was a loaded statement I just threw out there, but it kind of feels that way. I mean, he's
he said himself he's the chairman of the board forever until he dies, and he has the right for succession to name his heir to be the next board of peace chairman. I never saw this kind of structure in my entire lifetime. Never seen it. But he did it. He did it there. Well, that we're kind of getting a little bit off the mark here, but this is hugely important when you consider the sitting president can go off and do these things internationally, like creating a board of peace and then name himself the chairman of it, and doing all these things now with Gaza and perhaps other countries in the world as well. He's not doing that on behalf of the United States, for sure, because he's a president. He's a private citizen, and so if he goes out of office, this remains. The Board of Peace does not go out of business if he's not in office here. And also in all these countries at this point, once AI is established in these countries, the State Department goes on. The Pax Silica Agreement Declaration goes on because you can't reverse it at that point. This is the problem with all these crazy technocratic things. They're betting if they can accelerate. We'll talk about acceleration, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You have to. But if they can accelerate this whole system where you can't catch it in time, once it's embedded, you can't go back. You can't unwind all the damage is done. If actually for these countries, they think, well, there's no damage here. We love this stuff. You know, you gave it to us and we're paying for it. And we've established everything just like you said. We're monitoring our subjects, and they can't do anything unless we tell them to do something. You cannot unwind that. I don't care who comes into the presidency or any national office in our country. It doesn't matter at this point. Who is going to be the next administration? This will live on. You absolutely can, I can guarantee this will move on. And the technocrats who are behind it, they're not politicians.
Right.
Remember, they hate the political class.
Right.
So you think they're going to let go of their billions-dollar investments? I don't think so. There's no way you can force them, really. They're just private companies.
Right.
So no government's going to say, "Hey, you can't do that. We're going to fine you $100 billion or something." That they won't stand for that for sure.
No, for sure. So let's talk a little bit about Pax Silica and how China fits into the picture, and how essentially it kind of looks like they've orchestrated a way of boxing China out. So for people that have a little backstory, there's a lot of discourse right now about multipolarity, and for a long time it was not really a very public discourse. You had a lot of people who were in the pro-China, pro-Russia camps who were promoting multipolarity. They didn't always use the term, but now it's become pretty popular to dispute multipolarity, which I'm not aligned with multipolarity, but whenever it becomes a acceptable discourse to have the dialectical poles in very public view, I'm always curious as to what's going on behind the scenes there. And it seems that it's because it's actually a great distraction at this point, because it becomes kind of irrelevant. Because the narrative is, always that there are competition. And when you look at, Trump heading on over to China with Xi, it looks like a very different story.
It seems that way. I know. This business of being multipolar, a world, this was probably cooked up as much by China as anybody else. Their problem is they want to project themselves on the world stage to be, if they could be the outright muscle man, they would. I'm sure they could. They won't do that, but they don't have the power to do it. So they floated this concept of being multipolar. Well, we want to make sure that the world has multiple forces shaping the global system at that point. So we can talk about China, we can talk about Russia, you can talk about Europe, you can talk about United States, you can talk about the Middle East being a center possibly, but India is a big player for sure, right?
IMEC.
So
yeah,
IMEC. And so, all this talk about multipolarity, that's just nonsense. It's marketing spin, in my opinion. And we've seen this with this summit that just concluded last week. We've seen basically with Trump and what he's done to box China in, he's blown this to smithereens. BRICS is just off the rails at this point. There's no way BRICS is going to be a thing going forward. So how can this situation change this quickly? it puzzles me a little bit as well. But this situation has changed so radically in the last few months. But isn't that and kind of the way 2025 was in the first place? What is like totally accelerated. It's like it's on steroids or something. Stuff happens so fast that we just shake our head. We wrote our book. If anybody can't remember the name of the book, this is it, right?
Final
There it is.
Betrayal.
Okay. Okay. We wrote that book in real time, literally.
Yeah.
And it took us only about three months or so. But I mean, we were writing that book even as events were unfolding.
Yeah.
My next book here, shoot, it's
Backwards.
I know. I'll fix that when we take a break or something.
Okay.
But oh, there it is. That's your book. Your book. Yeah.
It's
Okay.
under-
Well, in any
Yeah.
case, the second book I wrote
Yes.
in 5 months after the first one was released in
The New
November
Economics of
4, right?
Technocracy.
November
Yes.
4. The New Economics of Technocracy.
Technocracy. Yeah. You'll own nothing.
Also, I had to do this in real time as well. And I condensed in 4 months, I condensed more material than we had to deal with our first book.
Yeah.
So
Amazing.
everything is just accelerating at warp speed. Just
Yeah.
absolutely intelligent. And I'm wondering at this point, what will it look? Will it look like another world in 6 months from now? It's like, okay. Having said that, everything's changing. The building blocks of globalization are being moved around. And Trump was very shrewd when he took out Venezuela as a source of oil from China. He took over, or he's in process of taking over the northern sea routes around Greenland. He kicked the Chinese out of the Panama Canal. They're not in charge of Panama Canal right now. It's going to be owned by BlackRock going forward. By the way, we
That's
jump
crazy.
in from the frying pan into the fire with BlackRock. But nevertheless, okay. So we have all of a sudden this business of Pax Silica is sprung on the world, and one by one, they picked off allies of China to join this coalition. And Australia is a huge, huge client and two-way client of China.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Totally. India is part of the BRICS concept. India has always traditionally been siding with China. All of a sudden now, partly because of Pax Silica and the IMEC corridor, India has decided to anchor the IMEC corridor. What does this leave China with? With Belt and Road? They're not too happy. I'm sure. I guarantee you they don't like it.
Right.
But the United States has picked them off. Now they've also enveloped them into the Pax Silica consortium, right?
Right.
So India will now be putting all of our AI stack in their society. Where does that leave China? Are they going to be in control of India in any way, shape, or form? No, they're not.
Oh.
This is India is probably the largest country in the BRICS consortium.
Sure.
You can look now at Qatar a little bit. Qatar has been a major player for China as well And we can look at the UAE. They've developed their relationship with China, and China looks to the UAE for a large part of their oil. All of a sudden, the UAE pulls out of OPEC, and they're doing their own thing now, and they're going to have our AI stack in their country. They're already building data centers in their country.
Right.
How's that going to play with China as an ally, as one of their allies has been picked off and moved into our orbit? See, this has been very clever redistribution of influence and money too, but influence and all of the sources that the China depended on. They've been all stripped away. All of a sudden, China is kind of isolated right now. They really are. And this is when I'm sure when, well, I can't say for sure. They didn't do this publicly, I know. But if Trump would hold up this list we have right here on their Pax Silica website, if they just show them that list, you don't have to even comment. Look at the list we have here, Chairman Z. Here you go. No problem. They're all in our camp now, you suckers. You know, we're leaving you in the dust. Join us now in the global technocracy or eat dust.
Right.
It's like they have no other choice at this point. Other than to go along with whatever the United States says. And if anybody thinks that there's something strange going on here, I just saw a story, and I'll probably post it. Well, I posted it today, I think, on my website, technocracy.news. China is sending tankers right now to the Gulf of America to pick up oil shipments from America.
Yeah, I heard that.
Did anybody ever see this coming?
Yeah.
All of a sudden, their supply of oil from the Strait of Hormuz is being blocked.
Right.
Iranian oil isn't get to them. Somehow, Trump has opened the floodgates now for them to come to us to buy our American oil, and don't get your chops salivating here. This will mean nothing to us. This is the major oil companies will profit, not us at all. Right. But they're also talking about getting it from Alaska as well. So
sure. Alaska has a lot of oil.
I know. So all of a sudden, China is eating out of our hands. We're not eating out of their hands.
Right.
They're eating out of our hands. And if you think that they're not humbled to have to send their tankers to our shores to get their oil to fuel their economy,
huge shift.
You don't see it. You don't see anything. If you can't see that, you can't see anything.
Right. Maybe we should play the clip of Trump and Xi.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, President Xi, I want to thank you very much. First of all, that was an honor like few have ever seen before. And I think I was particularly impressed by those children. They were happy. They were beautiful. The military is obvious. It couldn't be better, but those children were amazing, and they represent so much. And I know they represent so much to you. You and I have known each other now for a long time. In fact, the longest relationship of our two countries that any president and president has had. And that's, to me, an honor. We've had a fantastic relationship. We've gotten along. When there were difficulties, we worked it out. I would call you, and you would call me. And whenever we had a problem, people don't know, whenever we had a problem, we worked that out very quickly. We're going to have a fantastic future together. Such respect for China, the job you've done. You're a great leader. I say it to everybody. You're a great leader. Sometimes people don't like me saying it, but I say it anyway because it's true. I only say the truth. And I just want to say, on behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and I guess the best in the world. We have amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them, we asked the top 30 in the world, every single one of them said yes. And I didn't want the second or the third in the company. I wanted only the top. And they're here today to pay respects to you and to China. And they look forward to trade and doing business, and it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf. So I really look very much forward to our discussion. It's a big discussion. There are those that say this is maybe the biggest summit ever. They can never remember anything like it. I can say in the United States, people aren't talking about anything else. But it's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be your friend. And the relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before. Thank you very much. Thank you.
What do you think?
Well, I mean, the body language is very interesting. Watching Xi. I'm guessing he's got an earpiece that's translating it, but yeah. But even so, just the dynamic between the two. I mean, Trump is doing his I don't know how else to explain it other than, his apprentice reality star kind of a dance. Well, she's very good at, but it is very over the top kind of blustery. And but yeah, he's putting on the whole like the humility, and he's so honored, but he's really boxed him in. And yeah, Xi looks like it. He looks like he's kind of got his tail between his legs.
Indeed. There's another overlay that we need to understand to understand the strategies being applied in China right now. You might remember that the Abraham Accords in the Mideast paved the way for the IMEC corridor. Everybody's writing about it at this point. There's no doubt that Jared Kushner, who architected the Abraham Accords several years ago at this point, right. first administration, he was a guy that did it single-handedly almost. And so what that was intended to do was to make peace in the Middle East, but not through political dialogue. It was all going to be based on economic activity, not political activity. So when he set out to have these, like the UAE was, I think, maybe the first signatory to the Abraham Accords, Israel was on it as well. But these countries lined up to be part of that accord, so that they could develop joint trade. This is why we got IMEC. Right. So obviously it was hugely successful, and you can't argue at this. I'm not saying I'm for it or or against it. I'm just saying it was hugely successful, a successful strategy that unified the Gulf states like they've never been unified before, especially with relation to Israel, right? Yeah. Israel was they were all in a war at one time or another with their neighbors, all of them, and all of a sudden there's a forced peace, if you will, because of economic accords. So UAE is totally friendly now with Israel. They have their own mutual Pax, and Saudi Arabia, same thing, So all that to say, this has been successful where every president since 1948, when Israel became a country in the first place, every president has tried to make a peace deal in Israel. Sure. They all failed. Every single one of them failed miserably until Jared Kushner came along. That's President Trump's son-in-law, right? Right. When he came along, he changed the whole metrics. Let's not do it. Let's take a lesson here. Let's not do it politically. Let's do it economically. It was hugely successful.
So Mm-hmm.
Well, let me just
Yeah, finish that. Yeah.
roll this over now on
Okay.
China.
Okay.
There's no such thing as the Abraham Accords for China. Yes, they're not in the picture at all. But
Right,
nevertheless,
right.
this is the same strategy that they're using in China to get China on board with their global technocracy movement without disturbing the political bear or any other politicians in the country, and
Right.
any politicians in our country who want to block it. All of a sudden, it's about business, not politics.
Right.
So they've used the same strategy here to convert China into a player on the field. And I would dare say, at this point, China has built this BRI complex around the world,
Mm-hmm.
Belt and Road
Belt
Initiative,
Road.
they call it, right?
Yep.
I'll predict. I don't have I'm not a soothsayer, right? Don't pin that on me. But I'm saying as an analyst who's been studying this stuff for so many years, I can probably predict right now that one day, China is going to throw in on the IMEC corridor, lock, stock, and barrel, to integrate its Belt and Road Initiative into IMEC corridor.
Right.
I can see that happen. Don't hold me down to it. I'm not saying I don't have a crystal ball, but it
Right.
makes perfect sense to me that they would do that. Hey, look, if anybody could have predicted that China would be buying oil from us
From us.
by the
Yeah.
shipful, these huge tankers, they're huge, and China needs a lot of oil.
Of course.
Who would have thunk that all of a sudden China pivots and we become one of the major oil suppliers?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Well, there's so many things I want to cover, but before we move on, because you brought up the Abraham Accords, I think it's a good time. And Israel's role, and obviously Israel is a very big geographical locus in IMEC, right? The port of Haifa.
Yeah.
Well, there is a whole cohort of people who have somehow equated uh, Zionism with technocracy, which it just seems ludicrous on its face, but I think we should address it head on. I
Yes.
have been personally, I'm sure you have as well, accused of not acknowledging the various nations' roles in technocracy, but this is a supranational kind of orchestrational event, and this is Pax Silica, right? This is managerial, this is technocratic, this is not about nation states controlling power. So yeah, could you tell me let's address this.
Can I roll my eyes? I don't know if you can see it.
Did it go back far enough?
There's the eye roll.
Yeah.
Look, ever since I started this study of globalization, even in the 1970s, our work was, they tried to co-opt our
Yeah.
work. That is the anti-Semitic crowd. They wanted to co-opt our work and turn it into a screed for anti-Semitism. This has never changed. We see when somebody has the idea that the Jews are all the problem of the world, then they look for reasons to prove their case. They don't have a case, but they have to go to other people to get on board, right?
Right. So
My studies on technocracy over the last 11, 12, 13, 14 years, they saw that as an opportunity to make a case against Israel. That Israel somehow is the architects of technocracy. And somehow this whole nonsense, really just nonsense, that the Jews are behind everything in the world now, including technocracy, trying to steal our thunder, if you will, make it theirs.
Mhm.
This is the oldest play in the playbook. as far as I'm concerned. It's disingenuous. I would say to them, get your own cause. If you want to pursue it, get your own cause, you idiots. Go somewhere else, but invent something on your own. I don't want to challenge them to do that because they probably will. But yeah, I'm just saying, right?
Right.
So these people are freeloading our ideas or mind loading our ideas about technocracy and turning it into a case against Israel to blame Israel for everything that's going on. It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. I hate it with a passion. And there's a lot of people, we discussed it. You saw some of the headlines and the actual articles where that's just said that, Israel is behind technocracy. I don't know if you have one of those headlines to put up, but if you do put it up, that'd be great.
Okay.
I'll tell you what, this needs to be dealt with, and soon, because these people are freeloaders. They're disingenuous, for one thing, and they have no intellectual capital whatsoever themselves.
And I'm already seeing it in the comment, right? We've already addressed this. You're saying, well, they're right next to the Suez and the submarine internet cable. Yes, it's a geographical locus. That's not a controlling locus. If anything, they're being used for their location. I think they're actually being exploited in many ways. And as you always say, with your economic background, you followed the money. If you follow the money, who's behind building these rails? Who is the ownership of these rails of technocracy? It doesn't look like Israel to me. Doesn't look
It
like the
isn't. I
Jews even
know.
to me.
Look, Israel has its own problems. I
Sure,
I
I'm
don't
not
even want
saying,
to
yeah,
address them at this point. That's not
of
the issue.
course.
But when President Trump, or no, not President, Citizen Trump, that's what we call Citizen Trump, when he became the board of peace and he said, I'm going to take over Gaza and I'm going to make Gaza into a wonderful place. What do they call it? The Riviera of the Mediterranean, something like
Yeah.
that. And he's going to pull up manufacturing and all that kind of stuff, and hotels and stuff. He says, is going to be a beautiful thing. So he has enlisted CENTCOM, and that's CENTCOM in our country, to provide the security layer for Gaza going forward, right?
Right.
He's assembled a purely Islamic force of soldiers, 5,000 per country, to 20,000 man fighting force, if you will, police force maybe, to be operative under the control of CENTCOM. Okay, now here's the headline. As these troops are moving in right now, Israel is withdrawing from Gaza. Who figured? But see, nobody knows what's going on in Gaza anyway. And all of a sudden now, the remaining people with Hamas and the other citizens as well, they're going to be policed by a purely Islamic force, not an Israeli force.
Right.
Israel saying, you know what, we're out of here. We don't want any part of it at this point. Let Trump deal with it.
Right. Right.
So, they had their day in the sun, if you will, by having to fight with Hamas in Gaza. Is certainly unfortunate. Lots of people got killed, but that's the way war is. If you're gonna make a war for the country, you're gonna kill a lot of your citizens along the way. That's just makes perfect sense to me. But Israel's withdrawing right now. So how can how can these people reconcile? Oh, it's all Israel, Israel. Give me a break. It's not. It has nothing to do with with them at this point. Now it's Trump. Trump is not Jewish, for Pete's sake. He's far from it.
Right.
So he's inserted himself into Gaza now for the governance layer, the payment layer. We talked about that a little bit in my article. to have USD1 is to be the payment layer for all of the people in Gaza. And now
Right.
we have the security layer, this also being controlled by President Trump, by the president, right?
Right.
Through the military. This seems to me to be a U.S. operation all the way. This
Yeah.
is not an operation of Israel all the way. No
Well,
way.
and if anything, the funding is largely coming actually from the Gulf sovereign wealth funds.
A lot, that's right. A lot of it's coming from Gulf, especially from the
Gulf state
UAE,
sovereign wealth. Yeah.
sovereign wealth funds. So they're major
And
investors right now in Gaza, big time. So
And the whole tokenization framework that you've laid out in your book and that we talked about the last chapter, the Islamic finance system that they're leaders in fintech and they're based on asset-based tokens, which is not the payment token. So because they don't do debt usury, so
yeah.
it seems like. Yeah, that's not, once again, though, that's not Israel. So somebody in the comments is bringing up, Kabbalah. I have to just, I'm not going to go on a tangent on this, but Kabbalah and Rothschilds. And I will just say two things. The Rothschilds are not Jewish. If they subscribe to a religion at all, and maybe it's Satanism, they are not Jews. I do not think these people go to temple or have ever read the Torah. And in fact, Adrian de Rothschild is Catholic, so maybe we should just blame everything on the Catholics. I'm not saying we should. I'm being facetious. But secondly, they're talking about right. They're talking about the Kabbalah. Kabbalah is not Judaism. Kabbalah is mystical Judaism. It's a esotericism. This is occultism. This is not Judaism. So people need to stop conflating the two. This is not, I'm not saying that Israel is perfect and they don't have their problem. They absolutely do. But this idea that somehow Israel is behind the world's technocracy, I just can't find the facts behind it. So that's why I wanted to address it, because it's a narrative that's being circulated. And I know I've personally gotten a lot of flack for not jumping on board with this narrative. I'm like, I've tried. I don't see the facts. Where does anything support this narrative? All I see is a narrative. And I understand that you're very passionate about your narrative, but until you show me the facts that support it, I can't really, jump on board. So those are the two. But yeah, sorry.
Exactly. And I'll just stress again. I've seen lots of anti-Semitism along the way, starting in 1978, all over the place. I've seen every possible flavor, angle that can be stated succinctly. And one thing I know for sure, the whole movement is bankrupt intellectually. If they don't have something to prop their poison up, they'll find something to latch onto. This is all you can say about it. They have no way to support their speculation that Israel is behind everything, and all the Jews, and not maybe not Israel. The Jews are behind it. No, there's no proof from that at all. But when you adopt somebody else's cause that has nothing to do with Judaism at all, or Jews or Israel, then they say, well, there's the proof over there. We can adopt their cause and we can turn that into something to criticize the Jews on. This is a purely false man operation from the get-go. And if I ever saw that there was some originality in their thinking, I would probably applaud it at this point. But there isn't. There's nothing there. It's just a vacuum. So when a person is standing by himself, this is like the tree in the forest, right? When a person is standing by himself all alone, and he gets a wild imagination, I think maybe the Jews are behind this, whatever this is, right? Then they're vacant at that point. Their mind is just speculating. I think the Jews are behind this. Then they have to look for a cause to prove their thought, their speculation.
Right.
And so they quickly run across these other kooks that are talking about, well, it was Kabbalah, well, it was, they're imposters in Israel right now, and we have to drive them out, or whatever the cost. Now technocracy.
Mm-hmm.
Give me a break. This is intellectually bankrupt from the get-go, and these people should. Well, there's nothing you can say. This is a free speech issue for sure. I guess you can say what you want, but
Yeah.
don't bore me with it.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, they're free to say whatever. And like I said,
Uh,
I've actually entertained this. I don't see the facts. It
yeah,
seems like it's just an
that's
empty claim. And I
yeah,
get that they're passionate about it, but I'm like, well, show me the facts. Where is the support for your argument? I'm not seeing it. I don't see it at
yeah.
all. So,
Unfortunately, the facts never mattered. I've
yeah,
seen this time and
right.
time again. The facts don't matter to them. You can give them as many facts as you can, and it doesn't matter. Truckloads of facts. It doesn't impress them at all. They shift. Nah, we're not interested in facts. We
Right.
we know we know what we know what we know. The Jews did it.
Right. They're right.
Okay.
All
Hey,
right.
let me just
Yep.
okay, I just got one other factoid here.
Yeah. Bring them on.
all
Bring the
of
facts.
all of all of the neighbors around Israel, UAE, the Qatar, Yemen, Saudi Arabia, Egypt, all of these countries have had a war with Israel somewhere along the way, right?
Right.
And there's a lot of embittered people in these Islamic countries who hate Israel with a passion.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
Hamas wanted to wipe them off the map, literally wipe them off the map with this concept of what was it, from the Jordan to the Mediterranean or something, or from the sea. That means get rid of all Israel and push them in the sea and drown them all. Okay, so all of these enemies of Israel, is it possible somehow that the Arabs can't identify who the Jews are? Do you think? I mean, have they somehow made a mistake that those Jews are imposters and they're not ones to blame? The problem here, you see, because all these Arabs have been fighting against Jews forever, even going back to Old Testament days, and they know who their enemies are. You can't just redefine this because it's convenient. They know who their enemies are, and their enemies have been Israel traditionally. They know that these people are Jews who are living in Israel. That's stupid to say, well, they're all a bunch of imposters. That just drives me crazy. But some people are suggesting that we can't deal with Israel because they're just imposters. They don't belong there.
Mm.
That's crazy.
That, yeah, I don't even follow the logic behind that.
There isn't any. That's my point. There's no logic at all. There's no logic at all behind it. But people have said this, and the Jews, they migrated from northern whatever, northwest or northeast of Israel, or excuse me, from Europe, and they came out of this region somehow, and they migrated down to Israel, but they're not Israelites and they're not Jews, and
Oh, I see what you're saying. The whole theory
and
about the
so
Ashkenazis. Yeah, there's all these strange. Somebody just commented on the Frankists in the 17th. Again,
yeah.
not Jewish, false messiahs, not Jewish. I mean, the narratives that are being propagated, it's like the elders of, this is a tangent, so I'll make it really quick, but it's like the elders of the protocols of Zion. It was proven as a Russian intelligence operation. I mean, it was proven. This is not speculation.
Yes.
And there are people who are still troping it around as if it's
Yes.
fact. I'm like, and then they're parading the 13th tribe. Arthur Kessler was a known Comintern propagandist. He worked under Willy Munzenberg. Like, this is historical documentation. This isn't like speculation. This is not me being a conspiracy theorist. Anybody can go look up any of these facts. These are documented facts. And as far as the Israelis, I mean, like you just look at the calendar timeline. I mean, it's I won't go off, but I mean, it's just like the data points are pretty clear. You know, they turned it into arable land, and once it was arable land, suddenly they decided they would sell it back to them for a higher price. Yeah, we could go on and on this topic, but
Yeah. Hey, we're
it's,
talking, but we're talking about Pax Silica here, you know.
yeah, let's get back to Pax Silica. I just wanted to, nip that in the bud because a lot of people had approached me saying that Pax Silica is really a, Israeli Zionist project. And I'm like, show me the facts. I don't see any evidence that that is the case. Pax Silica is not about Israel, except that in terms of, IMEC, there is the Haifa port. Israel is certainly in that region. So, as a geographical locus, it's certainly a desirable node. That doesn't mean they're a controlling locus. A node is a node is likely exploited for geographical reasons. That doesn't mean they have a controlling, share of it. So, or that they're the architects behind it, which we know they're not. There's no evidence behind that. So, yeah, there's the technique map. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, because one of the things that, and I do think this is relevant to Pax Silica, but one of the things that happened at that China meeting with Xi and Trump was this Board of Trades. And we now have the Board of Peace, the Board of Trade, and the Board of Investment.
Yeah.
And so the reason I think it's relevant is because Pax Silica is now this infrastructure that's going to be essentially, like if we're talking about the old narrative of China competing with the US, right? We had Kissinger's rapprochement plan, essentially built that triangle with the Soviet Union, the United States, China, and then we had the whole rapprochement plan where Kissinger was building up China, and many people will remember Bush riding the bicycles with Barbara, and that's not evidence of anything other than that he was an envoy, right, to in the new normalization, which was part of this rapprochement plan, and then we now have what I would argue is this new triangle with AI, and that Pax Silica plays a huge instrumental role of state power. Then you've got the corporate power, and then essentially the public partnerships, right? This merger of state and corporate power that's going to be through this compute infrastructure. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on all of that?
Yep. I'm thinking back. One thing I'll probably throw in here. I've been thinking about this contingent of technocrats that went with Trump to China, and the concept of China being built up by Western money, Western technology.
Right.
If Anthony Sutton were alive today, he would have detailed this far more than I have,
Yeah.
because he understood the transfer of technology from the West to the East, with relation to Nazi Germany, with relation to Russia, and he would have talked about China if he lived enough, long enough.
Yeah.
He died in 2002, I think it was. So, having said that, China has been a captive of the Western elite since 1976, when Zbigniew Brzezinski brought Chairman Deng to America to wine him and dine him and get him inducted onto the world stage. From that point forward, technocracy, Brzezinski called it technotronic era, same thing, technocracy. When when Chairman Deng was excused at that point to go home, he didn't take free market economics with him. He did not take capitalism with him. He took technocracy with him. This has been borne out for years now. We've seen Time magazine talking about China being a technocracy, and context from what we know about technocracy from the 1930s. They're bold to proclaim this. China became a technocracy at least by the year 2000. Okay. Well, all the investment, all the infrastructure that was built up by the United States, um, was it was put into China's portfolio, but it was still controlled by the Western oligarchs. What I'm leading up to here I want people to understand just how pervasive this has been, and how this has been hidden from the American people, because China has not been our enemy. They're saying this is our enemy, but we have to beat China to the punch or whatever. They're not our enemy, my friends. Hardly, far from it. So, having said this, let me just talk about the contingent that went with Trump to China. The MIT of China is Tsinghua University in Beijing.
Yeah.
It's an old line school formed in 1911. It's like STEM-based university, science and technology, you name it. It's been an institution forever in China. Everybody knows it. This is pre-revolution days, going way back to 1911. So along the way, in the year 2000, one of the Chinese architects of Tsinghua University decided that he should have an advisory board made up by Westerners to advise their school of management in particular. Now, this is PhD level education stuff, right? And
Yeah.
so he didn't pick the educators of the world, or even educators here. You didn't see necessarily the president of Harvard, the president of Stanford, or whatever. They might have been there along the way, but they picked their members of this advisory board from the tech oligarchs along the way. So the first chairman of this advisory committee that was appointed by this Chinese guy was Henry Paulson, the infamous Secretary of Treasury, who pounded his fist on the table when the financial crisis was unfolding and Bear Stearns went out of business and Lehman Brothers have disappeared and the whole world is falling apart. And he slammed his fist on the table in the Senate and said, "You give me a blank check, or we're going to all get soaked and destroyed." This is hammering Hank Paulson, my friends. He was the first chairman of the board of this Tsinghua University advisory board.
Right.
Now, it just so happens that this contingent of people who went with Trump, there was 17 of them.
Mm-hmm.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them were members of this board of directors of Tsinghua University. That means almost 40% of these people who were flying with Trump were part of this university already. And they've been meeting with them continuously over the years, at least one annual meeting per year. And their role is to guide the MIT of China with respect to management and economics. What's with this, okay, here's the members. These are the people who flew with Trump. They were at the table when Trump gave his message. Larry Fink, BlackRock, CEO, member of the Trout Commission. Jane Fraser, CEO of Citi Corp. Tim Cook, really? The head of Apple? He's currently the chairman of this board right now. In other words, he took Hank Paulson's role and he's the chairman of the board right now. David Solomon, the CEO of Goldman Sachs, that's a big guy. Steven Schwartzman, the founder and CEO, or chairman, whatever, of Blackstone. Elon Musk. Elon Musk is on the board too. These aren't educators, folks. These Steven Schwartzman, by the way, the founder of Blackstone. That's a huge investment company.
Yeah.
He funded.
It was originally part Larry Fink with BlackRock, then they split. Yeah.
Exactly. So Schwartzman funded the Schwartzman Scholars Program at Tsinghua University itself. It's a Rhodes Scholar style program specifically designed to train future global leaders in China. That's a separate institution from Tsinghua SEM, the School of Management and Economics and Management, but on the same campus and deeply intertwined with the same party state apparatus. Okay, they have their own Rhodes Scholarship over there.
Yeah.
It's been funded by Western money.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, all this to say, get a grip where China is right now, because China has never been our enemy. It will never be our enemy in the future, because these people have been embedded all along the way with the rise of technology, at least since 2000, for sure.
Yeah.
They've been there all along, coaching, mentoring Chinese leaders, even Chairman Xi. So, we need to reframe our thinking here about China altogether. To me, this is just absolutely stunning.
And speaking of academic institutions, Anthony Sutton did document this, that Mao was part of that whole Yale and China program from 1919 to 1921. I'm not saying that means that Yale created Mao, but he was definitely part of that institution. So.
Wow. Just stunning. Well, we have to reframe everything we know about China in modern terms. That's all I'm saying. China is a technocracy. It's being merged into the global technocracy
And
at the hands of President Trump, unfortunately.
right, and the big tech, right? So because since 1989 that Oracle has had a major controlling share of their technocratic infrastructure in China since Tiananmen Square. Yeah.
Yes, exactly right. Yeah.
So,
You could say that China could not operate without Oracle.
yeah, I think that would be a fair statement. They're not the only infrastructure, but it is the cloud server that most of their system runs on.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Do we have any questions? Anybody have any questions
I
along the
think we
way?
do have some questions. We do, but I think before we take questions, we have a pretty short clip about Taiwan. And I think we should play that because that's where most of the chips are made. So I think that's a huge part of the Pax Silica infrastructure. And of course, they're participants,
By the
not
way, last
signatories.
night we talked the whole night about that issue. I think I know more about Taiwan right now than I know about almost any
You
country
think
other
it
than
dominated the talk?
It's always been his most important thing from the day I knew him years ago. I've known him now 11 years, 12 years. It's always been the biggest thing for him, Taiwan. Now, with me, I don't think they'll do anything when I'm here. When I'm not here, I think they might, to be honest with you. But I'm not sure that they do anything if it remained as is. But they have somebody there now that wants to go independent. Well, it's a risky thing when you go independent. They're going independent because they want to get into a war and they figure they have the United States behind them. I'd like to see it stay the way it is. And I'll tell you something. I'll make a little news. I'd like to see everybody making chips over in Taiwan come into America because, to be honest with you, I think it's the greatest thing you can do because it's a heated situation. There's no question about it. And as you know, we have massive amounts of chip companies now from Taiwan already coming in. We expect to have 40 to 50% of the world chip business by the end of my term And I think it should be even more than that. I think all of those chip companies, if they're smart, they're going to start heading to Arizona and the places where they're building. That's going to solve your problem.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
They're going to move them all to Arizona, to your state.
You're looking, here's the city of Phoenix behind me. If you look to the left and then to way back in the back of that picture, go that way about 5 miles, you'll run across of this huge chip maker, this huge facility. TSMC it's called. It's going to be the largest chip maker in our country, and this is one that that came from Taiwan.
Wow.
Okay, so let me just rewind a little bit. We
Sure.
talk about chips in terms of Jensen Huang, the founder of NVIDIA.
Yeah. Who was
Jensen
there?
Huang, he was forbidden to sell chips. His new H200 chip, whatever the latest chip, AI chip, he was forbidden to sell that to China.
Yeah.
He is a big thing. He was probably disappointed. American, cheered, let's beat China to death. Well, Jensen Huang got on the airplane at the last minute in Alaska. Trump called him on the phone and said, "You beat a path up here. I want you on this plane." Jensen, believe me, he could have his own plane to fly, across to China. He probably has a fleet of jets at this point, but nevertheless, Trump said, "I want you on my plane so we can discuss stuff." That's exactly what he did. He flew to Alaska, jumped on a plane with Trump and Elon Musk, by the way.
Of course.
He's one of the biggest customers of Jensen Huang along the way. So then Wang went to China, and I kind of speculated something's changing here because he shouldn't be on this plane in the first place.
Right.
Trump has something in his mind to use him as a bargaining chip.
That's what it seems like.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now Jensen has walked away with like $150 billion of business to sell our most advanced AI chips to China, which will take probably the pressure off of Singapore, possibly at this point as well. And the rest of the Asian corridor that produces chips.
Right.
So, something has been, it just feels something has fundamentally changed with this China card.
It does
Buying
seem.
oil from us now, and they're buying our chips now to fund their AI development. And what else? Well, probably other aspects, but this is enough for me. This is technocracy. Are they going to somehow convince China that China should sign Pax Silica Declaration? Possibly.
It seems like that's what they're pressuring.
Oh, I know you have to ask the question. China, the Z is coming to the United States this September 25, something like that. This fall, he's coming here. Their intention is to populate the boards of investment and the boards of trade.
Yes.
That'll be probably the major deliverable at that point, to populate those boards to get what do you call it? The declaration is ready, right? To underpin the whole thing. And then it'll be off to the races. But I wouldn't be surprised if somehow China gets backdoored as a senior partner into Pax Silica to give them all of our technology wholesale, outright, without any conditions. Well, maybe the user conditions, but
user conditions, yeah.
I know. But
The click wrap agreement.
Yeah, exactly,
The
exactly. I
smart
wouldn't be
contract.
that would not surprise me at this point. Nothing will surprise me going forward. The
So
world is
the
changing. The world is changing.
very much so. So, two things before we move to questions, just to again make this really crystal clear for people. You know, all the money in the world. If Jensen Huang doesn't sell you chips, you're kind of boxed out.
Yes.
So, I think just even his presence is kind of that like leverage bargaining chip. Not like nothing even has to be said because China knows it. We know that China knows it. And it just becomes that unspoken leverage card. It's poker, right? Um,
Yes.
so I think that's kind of the elephant in the room. And the other thing is that the Board of Trade starts to, I very much think it looks like the Board of Peace is kind of a rebrand that's going to
Yes.
supersede the UN. And now we've got the Board of Trade, which looks like a replacement, a supersession of the World Trade Organization.
Exactly so. They've said this. This has been articulated
Yeah.
already by officials. Yes.
Okay.
It'll replace certain functions, at least, of the WTO.
Yeah, so this is Pax Silica. It's creating the entire new infrastructure, right? And then the Board of Investments. Now, where does that fall into all of this? Do we know?
This, I know this.
I don't know as much about it.
Well, this is how the money is going to flow via tokenization into assets around the world. The
Okay.
Board of Investments will be the conduit to get money from China, from here, back, and whatever, to be the fund, if you will, maybe a supra international sovereign wealth entity.
Right. So is this where, like, does the Clarity Act become very advantageous in this framework?
I
Uh,
think it does.
yeah, I think so
I need
too.
to examine it again one more time.
I don't think they need it, but I think it becomes useful and it makes this much more
Yes,
expedient, the
yes,
Board of
yes.
Investment.
And by the way, for people who are not paying attention, the Clarity Act is moved out of the Senate Banking Committee. Now it's being reconciled with I think by the Agriculture Committee or something in the Senate. That's a minor thing at this point. Trump
Right.
wants this on his desk by July 4th. That's what he said.
Yes.
Maybe they'll do it, maybe not, but you know, the odds are increasing. The forecasters of odds say there's probably a 75% chance it'll pass before then. So just you go figure. That's not me saying that. That's just them,
No.
the
And
bookmakers.
right, yeah. So for those who aren't familiar with the whole trajectory, the just so that people are aware, the Clarity Act was initially part of the Genius Act. They weren't able to pass it because the bankers were pushing back because it would wipe out essentially the banks. They would lose a lot of money and potentially be obliterated and, you know, completely eviscerated. They're no longer needed. So they pushed back, and so they passed the Genius Act and took the Clarity Act out of the Genius Act. And then they tried to pass it on its own, and the bankers stood up. I never thought I'd be cheering the bankers on as our allies, you know, go bankers.
Go bankers.
But the bankers were really our good friends in this fight, the proverbial fight, and they pushed back. But now the Banking Senate Committee has pushed it through. So I don't know, but if you've got some banking friends, tell them to step up and. We need people to really push back against the Clarity Act. They can get around it. So the overarching infrastructure like the DTCC doesn't need the Clarity Act. The tokenization can still be utilized for the big institutions. They can still execute these tokenized visions. But for the everyday person, they need the Clarity Act because that is what gives them the regulatory infrastructure for everyday people to trade in token. And of course, they want that because that's tremendous. It's power, money, and complete consolidation because it's programmable money. They're programmable, they're censorable. And for those who question it, it is just in the architecture of the smart contract. So it is essentially, it's just permissions, right? It's just your access granted or access denied. And so that means access to your tokens, to your own money, access to use it in certain places or not. So
Wow, yeah, that's a lot of stuff for people to digest for sure.
Sorry. Well, I was hoping it was the Cliff Notes. So
No? Okay, well, I'll tell you what. When we say we're rooting for the bankers, I'm not talking about the JP Morgans of the world, not the
right,
Citicorps, not the Wells Fargo, not
right,
Bank of America. Forget them. They're fighting against the local banks,
right.
tooth and nail at this
Yeah,
point. They're sending them, they're sending them packing at this point. The
yeah,
regional banks, your state banks, your savings
yeah.
and loan, the people in your own community that are your bankers there. We have lots of several state banks in our
Regional banks.
Arizona. Yeah, so these are the banks that want to scuttle the whole thing because this will drive them out of business in the end.
Exactly.
They see the handwriting on the wall. It will put them 6 feet under and leave only the biggest banks that we
Then
just
they'll all consolidate. The big banks will take over and it'll all just
they'll
trickle
buy. That's
upward.
right. All their assets will be bought up by bigger banks, and at that point, there will be no lending activity going on in ground zero around the country. That this is well, I'm creating like a macroeconomic study right now to
Okay.
show the effects of tokenization on the money
Great.
supply, on lending, stuff like that. And this, for instance, farmers they have to have sources of lending to put their crops in the ground. They can't do it at this point. They have to have capital. They have to have the machinery to harvest it, et cetera. So all these rural banks that are existing around the country, they're not going to be a source for these people anymore. And the same thing with small business around the country. There's the source of lending is going to be dried up. What does this mean for America? Well, we have to have those banks in place to loan money if we're going to do it at all. And this kind of underscores this whole concept of switching over from a debt-based economic system into an asset-based economic system. That's probably a discussion maybe for next month.
Yeah, let's do that for next month.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. All right. So if you have not given me your questions, put a capital Q and a colon. That'll make it much easier for me to go through and find your questions. So let's see if I'm looking through. I don't think we have any questions on Substack. I'm looking through that one.
Here's one on the
We've got
screen here.
comments. Yeah, we'll get to the usual. I'm just looking to because he can't look at the Substack. So just in
Okay.
case. No, we have comments from people who clearly did not watch but have lots of opinions. There's always those. They've got all sorts of opinions but didn't bother to listen to what we had to say. All right, so this question is a hi both question for Patrick. You said technocracy is essentially apolitical, and yet Brzezinski saw the opportunity to expand the agenda with communist China. Can you elaborate on that? That's actually a great question.
Absolutely, that's a great question, and
Yeah.
this has always been economic. The whole thing has been enforced by economic rails, not by political rails. When Brzezinski came to the scene, and he and all the other members of the Trilateral Commission at that point, they took over the Carter administration, lock, stock, and barrel. All the cabinet members, the president himself, his vice president, they're all members of the Trilateral Commission. It was a clean sweep. I've never seen anything like in the history of the world, at least in our country. Yeah. Clean sweep. They were all in place, cabinet positions, national security positions, everything. They said, routinely, but they said they weren't interested in politics. What? You just took over our country. How can you say? And we debated with these people. They know we're not interested in politics. We're not political actors. Mm-hmm. So when I figured out eventually what they were after the control of the largest and probably the only engine of industrial power in the world, our economic system, our economic. We were the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and we have been ever since. When they captured our economic engine, they started the Reformation process immediately. And it's been progressing all of these years as an economic platform, not as a political platform. Agenda 21 came along, 1992. That was economic. That was not political. Agenda 2030 came along. That wasn't political. This was an economic issue. Technocracy came along. It was not a political issue. It was an economic issue. Economics has slid under the radar all these years, and they've used politicians along the way if they could. Most knuckled under, basically. History proves that. But it's always been a left, no difference between left or right here at all, because they don't care who's in power. Bill Clinton was a member of the Trout Commission. He did great things. George Bush did a lot for him. Dick Cheney, vice president, was a member of the Trout Commission. They loved them. You know, on and on and on. Every
Big
president,
club.
yeah,
We're
every
not in
president
it.
since has been friendly to technocracy as an economic system, not a political system.
Right. Yeah. The George Carlin statement that, it's a big club and you ain't in it. Yeah.
You're not in it.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Let's see. Let's see if we have. I know there were some other questions. Let's see if we can find them.
Oh, here's one on the
Okay.
screen. On the screen.
Yes, I have to
okay.
look at it on here because I can't
Oh, yeah.
see that. Can I? Why is it not popping up on here? Okay. Since this is all rooted in theosophical Babylonian mystery school occultism BS, let me move this out of the way so that I can read the rest of this. Okay, so occultism BS. Didn't Bailey and Co. claim that the Maitreya would return in 2025? So if that's hardcore enlightened Luciferianism, well, yeah, okay. And then it's continued. Is the Maitreya here? Or are their plans going to fail, as we know they ultimately will, even this technocracy? I hope they fail. I just don't know when or or if we get to see that. But yeah, well, I'll answer my thoughts, and then I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, Patrick. But I actually wrote a whole article on the Centennial Conclave because Alice Bailey said that 2025 would be the year of the externalization of the hierarchy. And what I found most interesting about it, so for those who aren't familiar, it's at the quarter of the century, so starting since 1425, they would have this Centennial Conclave. And then she predicted that in 2025, that would be the year that would be the externalization of the hierarchy. And so, of course, the externalization of the hierarchy is the time when the archons, the aeons, or some may say demons, are going to make themselves known. They will reveal themselves and they will come, and interact with all of us, lucky us. And so, yeah, this is it, the 2025 Centennial Conclave, Unmasking Lucius Trust's century-long agenda for global transformation. And Lucius Trust was started, it was originally Lucifer Publishing in 1922. This was started by Alice Bailey, who was a disciple of Madame Blavatsky, who you'll see there. Madame Blavatsky was one of the founders, along with many, like Juan Judge and Henry Steele Alcott. They created the Theosophical Society in 1875. Annie Besant was also a member. She was the founder of the Malthusian League, and she was a member of the Fabian Society. These organizations all seem to have a lot of overlap. And what I found very interesting, so Lucius Trust, Lucifer Publishing, 1922, then 1924 became Lucius Trust. They have consultancy status with the UN. So they're kind of like spiritual advisors to the UN. That's a way you can think of it. But I found it very interesting because at this time, they were focusing their Centennial Conclave around when this red moon was going to be. That was a very spiritual time for the esoteric members of the arcane school that Alice Bailey has created under Lucius Trust. And they also had all of these meetings. yes, let the plan of love and light work out. It sounds great. Arcane School Conference, where people learn the esoteric messages of Alice Bailey and her teachings. And they, at that time, they were doing all of these meetings, these globalist meetings. They had the Bilderberg meeting around the same time. They had a Davos meeting. So there were all the UN had a meeting. So you had all of these various globalist organizations that were meeting right around the time of this centennial conclave. And it just didn't seem like a coincidence to me. I think that if you ask what are these aeons that are the externalizing the hierarchy, I do think that AI plays a role in that, and I think they're right now they're working really hard. We did a whole show on this with the Technocracy Roundtable to try and put consciousness into machines. I had recently written a Substack, the Factory Reset, about Gino Yu and his levels of consciousness, and he works with Joe Shabak. And his big contribution, in my opinion, this was my main thesis of that article, is that what he was trying to sell Epstein was this problem, the problem that they couldn't scale up with the Stargate CIA project and the Stanford Research Institute project, was this scaling problem, because they could teach a few people with quote unquote special abilities, these remote viewers, who were going to help us win the Cold War. That was the big headline, right? But they couldn't get, your average military, soldier to learn this trait. There might be a few who had these special abilities, but what he was selling was using VR technology in order to be able to create this kinds of special abilities. And the hope was that if you had those special abilities, you could train others and possibly train the machines, because he believes, along with Goertzel, this is open cog, right? That the difference between their version of AGI, so for those who aren't familiar, AGI is this concept that the AI will supersede human intelligence, and many believe that it will then become sentient. But the people like Kurzweil and Marvin Minsky, a lot of these proponents of AGI, believe that all it needs is computation. So that's the intelligence, and as long as it can aggregate the information, it can supersede human intelligence. But Ben Goertzel and Gino Yu of OpenCog believe that it has to have consciousness. So my very long-winded way of saying that they're trying to put this consciousness into machines. I don't believe they will ever be successful, but they've spent a lot of time and money in this endeavor. And if they were to achieve this goal, it does seem kind of like, these machines are inhabiting some sort of AI god-like status. So yeah, that's my thoughts on all of that. But
Wow. I would remind everybody that it was 2025 when all of this talk about releasing the UFO files with President Trump, and a lot of people went nuts over that. They're still going nuts of it. I don't know if they've seen the beef yet, but nevertheless, they say it's going to come, and the population is going to be shocked. I tell you, that's what they say. We'll see, but this is obviously hitting the time frame of 2025, and we see the play out now when the files will be speculated on, and everybody's going to have their opinion. But at this point, I'll just give you my personal opinion as a Christian.
Yeah.
I do not believe in UFOs from extraterrestrial sources. I believe there are demons, the demonic forces in the atmosphere, that we can't see them, but nevertheless they're there. And I do believe that, for the Bible teaches that, I think, very clearly. And considering the occultic formation of all these groups going back 200 years even, they all had their roots in occultism, not in extraterrestrial beings, right?
Right.
So it makes sense to me that what they were talking about in the first place would perhaps there would be a releasing or a vast increase of demonic activity going along in the world, And maybe this is going to be the fulfillment when the UFOs files really convince everybody that, oh my gosh, we have, all these aliens among us or whatever. We'll see. I'm just speculating, I realize,
Mhm.
but
Sure.
this is I don't think it's ever going to play out. We've been visited by people from outer space.
Yeah. Well,
Sorry.
we've got the Disclosure movie coming up, right?
Yes.
Spielberg Disclosure. And I keep saying I could see them using it as an excuse to implement and force their world ID, right? There.
You know,
We got to,
look,
we need to know who's human and who's extraterrestrial.
every depiction of an extraterrestrial has arms, legs, and a head, and
I
usually a
know.
mouth or ears. How's that possible when nobody's ever seen humans, that they all turn up like with the human organs, or not organs, but limbs, and they walk upright and they give me a break. This is you just think about it. That's so silly to
It
think they
is.
look like us.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah.
Okay,
All
next
right. So
question.
there's, yeah. Yeah, somebody said Christianity has a form of Kabbalah too. Yeah, that's true. They spell it with a C, Kabbalah. Okay. How do HOAs play a role? I'm not sure what they mean by HOAs. Are you talking about like
That's
housing
homeowners
HOAs?
associations.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
I guess in a smart village, maybe like in a that would actually come into play. I think if you lived in some sort of like a 15-minute city that was like a smart village city,
Yes.
then the HOA might have some sort of controlling leverage.
Exactly. That the HOA would be the big brother to the local subdivision HOAs you have right now.
Right.
For instance, the subdivision we live in is probably, oh, maybe it's 2 miles square on east side, maybe. There's a few thousand homes maybe. We have an HOAs, ours exclusively.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it, but it's ours. So,
Right, right.
if they set the rules, you have to obey the rules. If you can't park on your street at night, they'll ticket you, and they'll suck you dry until you pay. So, you
They're
know,
like the human click wrap agreements.
that's exactly right. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so renting a parcel from a larger entity, but having no controlling rights. This sounds like a substitute for carbon credit, another method not to allow us to use our property freely. Yes?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, we haven't talked about carbon credits. This is really important for technocracy, because technocracy was originally based on energy and energy distribution. That's how they're going to pay everybody a wage, if you will, as like universal basic income, based on energy credits. This is kind of very similar, but yeah, this you have to figure all these people who want to suppress our use of carbon fuel
Mm-hmm.
to tamp down energy, to tamp down economic activity.
Right.
That's designed to slow the pace of living all the way down to the bone if they can. So any way they can do that, any way they can control the economic activity on the property that you are leasing, let's say. If they say you can only use a certain amount of energy on that property, that's all the energy you're going to get. You won't get any more lines on there. Maybe have a 110, maybe a 220. You're not going to get a 440 for sure to run an industrial something or another. And that this is the condition that the controllers will put on you when you lease that property. And you have no guarantee, I think, even that the lease might change along the way if they decide to revise the terms of service, if you will. They'll have a mechanism to do that, to make your life miserable, even more miserable, with changing rules.
Yes. So we do have some Substack questions. So the first one I see is, does this mean that the Iran war is over? The Iran war? I mean,
Not quite, but
yeah,
it'll be over. I guarantee it'll be over at some point. If Iran does not come to the table, they'll be probably blown off the map, even by their neighbors. UAE wants to attack them right off. They're fed up with them.
right.
In Iran, they'd like to have a whack at it. But remember, President Xi said to President Trump, uh, we're not going to sell arms to or overly sell arms to Iran anymore. And he said, we want to keep the Strait of Hormuz open for business 24/7. So that kind of threw Iran under the bus, in my opinion.
Right.
Now China is happy to buy oil from us, not from Iran. That's what a
Right.
slap in the face to Iran. Iran probably thinks that China should come in and militarily solve their problems.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's not happening. So, the war will be over when it's over. But when the strait is cleared, it will be cleared on behalf of the IMEC corridor,
Right.
not
Right.
because China said so.
Right. Right. So when do you think they will announce it to the world, that about the tokenization of everything and what that means to citizens? Well,
Yeah.
I mean, they've already started to announce it. I
Oh,
don't know about
yes.
yeah, they've made that pretty vocal, but I don't know that they've really explained what it means to people. Although, didn't Klaus Schwab say you will own nothing and be happy? I think that's pretty much what it means.
I think that's the point. Yeah, that's right. That's the title of my book.
Yeah,
The new
right,
economics of
exactly.
technocracy. You'll own nothing. Yeah. So,
Yeah. So, and I keep saying that we won't be happy unless we come to love
yes.
our servitude in Huxley's Brave New World. But now we have the executive order on psychedelics, so they'll give us all our soma, and maybe we'll be
Yeah,
very happy.
yeah. Last year, I could talk to people about tokenization in theory.
Okay.
It didn't hit home. People couldn't conceive really. And admittedly, it's hard to conceive. What does this mean, tokenization stuff?
Okay. Right.
Well, I talk for at least 2 years now, maybe 3 years about tokenization and what it means to the economy, what it means to society, et cetera. Now, all of a sudden, the New York Stock Exchange comes out and says, we're going to tokenize by the end of 2026. The whole stock market, the New York Stock Exchange, all the stocks
Yeah.
on the New York Stock Exchange will be tokenized. And we're talking at least 25 trillion dollars in asset value. What does this mean? Well, I tell you what, it means we're in big trouble, folks. This is not theoretical anymore. This is on the ground, boots on the ground, technocracy eating the world. And when the owner of the New York Stock Exchange is a company called ICE, I can't remember what it stands for, but that's what it is. Not that ICE, right? Not ICE,
Okay.
but ICE. That's a company name. They own several stock exchanges around the world, and they're going to do the same thing for all of them. And that's when their intention. They're starting with the New York Stock Exchange. By the time they're done with just their segment of the global stock market, they're looking at $170 trillion of assets around the world to be tokenized. This is huge, absolutely huge.
Yes. So someone asked if there's a way for the average person to safeguard savings, retirement, and property from this system. I am certainly not a financial advisor, but I will say that I think any form of articuria, which we opened the show with the video talking about Aristotle's term, which is self-sufficient home, I would definitely support. And this is just any way that you can be a producer of the things you need. So You know, certainly people, you don't need to have a big farm to be able to provide for your family. There's a lot of things that people can do. So I'm a big advocate of that. And then, of course, there's hard assets. I do know that right now with the Uniform Commercial Code through Article 8, if you don't have the physical title, which most people don't because it slows things down. Most people have a manager for their 401k or for whatever portfolio they may have, and their manager will do the trading for them. And if they were to, if you have the physical paper, the title, which means you own each position, then the manager will need to get that from you before they can move positions. So a lot of times they don't even really tell you about it. And I'm not telling you what to do, but that is a possibility. So you would actually physically own it. That now things are moving with the Uniform Commercial Code Title 12 into the tokenized ledger. Now I don't know what form of title will be, possible in that realm, but I do know that's what exists right now. And then, of course, any kind of physical assets you can have. I do know there's I don't have the details to give everybody right now, but if you have land, you could look into a land patent. It's not always possible. Some states it's much harder than others. But if you have a land patent, you really own it outright. You don't pay property taxes on it. That's completely yours, free and clear. You complete ownership rights on whatever purview of the land patent. So sometimes land patent is on the land above. Sometimes it includes the mineral rights and whatnot underneath. But that does vary based on the jurisdiction. So I don't know if any of that's helpful to anybody. You might have a lot more to offer than I do on that. Your
No,
economics is much more of your arena than mine.
I'll say as cash is withdrawn from society because of tokenization, mostly because every time a token is attached to a part of a treasury bill, it takes it out of circulation where it won't be circulating like cash. And the people who are holding these huge stores of cash right now, like BlackRock and so on, these people they're keeping their powder dry when they can buy up some big quantities of natural assets on the face of the planet. They'll make out like bandits because they have cash. That cash will be turned in to assets. Okay, so take the lesson here.
The Great
Probably
Depression too.
for some people, cash will be king. That's all
In
you
the
can
Great
say.
Depression, didn't they hide it under their mattresses? And
Exactly so.
yeah,
Cash was king back then, and probably cash will be king again. If you have any way to put cash, sock it away somewhere, bury it in back, I don't know, don't probably not that, but keep cash on hand as much as you can, and maybe you'll have an opportunity to extend yourself if things really hits the fan in the future, where you can't buy certain things. But I can guarantee you, when tokenization hits the fan, probably there's going to be a drastic reduction of asset prices around the world. Probably. So be prepared.
yeah, that
Cash.
makes sense. Yeah, and cash is not traceable. It's not programmable. You have
No.
complete autonomy with cash. So yeah, I'm in alignment with that for sure. And then someone asked if we will be going into world war since the Strait of Hormuz is severely reduced, devastating food and energy in many countries. I think we're already kind of in world war, but I think they might be referring to more of a kinetic state.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
I don't think there's any way that Trump is going to let this escalate into a world war involving multiple allies on both sides, nuclear bombs and that sort of stuff. At this point, I don't see that in the cards. Maybe in the future, maybe in terms of the Book of Revelation or something, yeah, and in the future. But at this point, I don't see this is going to happen. China
Right.
is already on the skids as far as Iran is concerned. So whatever is going to happen with Iran, however they get lined up with our values at this point, the Strait of Hormuz is going to be opened at some point, and just take that for what it is. That'll be business as usual at that point. Except, of course, the IMEC corridor is going to be the new Silk Road to Europe is going to be huge, because we're not just talking railroads and stuff like that. We're talking fiber optic trunks. We're talking pipelines to put oil, natural gas, helium, hydrogen, you name it, from India. And this is going to be a huge, huge thing, and a boon for China, or for Europe as well.
Yeah, for sure. Someone said, how are God's people should respond to the ungodly takeover, in your opinion? I'm guessing, how should God's people respond to this ungodly takeover, in your opinion?
What do you think?
I
I
don't-
I should ask you also, but I maybe we kind of talked about this, I suppose, but I'll give you my opinion,
Mhm.
because I am a Christian. I believe the Bible is true, and etc. Okay, so let me just say, this system of the world belongs to the God of this world. The Bible says that's the devil himself.
Yeah.
He's a God of this world. He'll exercise his pound of flesh anytime he wants to. So when we see this world spinning out of control and we think there's no hope for anybody, well, just remember, God says for his children, he'll never see us begging bread. He is able to clothe the lilies of the field. He takes care of the little birds, and he feeds them. How much more precious are you that he'll take care of you when trouble hits the fan? So for Christians, they should not be fearing at this point. I don't care what happens in the future, what the devil wants to throw at us. It doesn't matter if aliens, even if aliens arrive on planet Earth, that's not going to happen either. But I'm just saying, whatever the God of this world is going to throw at this world, it's going obviously possibly to a destination that may be the end times, but that's still not for us to determine, because that's God's business. That's not our business at this point. But maybe we'll last here for another 20 years, 50 years, 75 years. It doesn't matter. But the idea is that we should not be fearful. I remind people that the Bible has, it says, fear not, 365 times in the Bible.
Yeah.
That's one for every day. Okay,
Yep.
there's symbology in there, I think, possibly. Fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not, fear not. Fear is the most destructive thing you can do for yourself and your family. You should not be fearing what's going to come. If you have major assets, you might lament that they're going to go down the tubes, or if they do, you might lament it. But nevertheless, this is the lot we'll face in the future, and it'll be your choice how you handle the situations, one at a time. And all I can say is, God bless you. Keep your eyes open and keep your powder dry.
Yeah. Well, I think also that the thing I try to remind people, because I think a lot of people have a lot of people say, well, it's already written, it's already planned out, and I would say that a noble cause is always worthy of fighting, regardless, and it's incumbent upon us to defend our sovereignty, our free will, because I think that's the most beautiful gift that we've been given, and so we should protect that, however we can.
Amen to that.
Uh, Patrick Wood, you spoke about the tokenization of all private property. How does this affect people who own property without a mortgage, totally outright, whether it's multifamily or single family? When will they go to sell or transfer it to their heirs? When does it become an issue as far as you owning the asset, or is it going to be split into little pieces? I do not really understand when you explain the tokenization of private property. I think we did answer this. How is it tokenizing going to change the game, so to speak? And I think we did answer that, but
Yeah. Going forward is going to have to be a rolling process for sure, because people that own their home outright, that's probably 35% of the country right now that own their own home. That's a wonderful thing. But eventually they'll have to sell. And, because they move to another state or move job or they die, the wife or the husband dies and I can't live in this big house. I'm going to sell it. And so, at this point, the people who will be around to pick up that property up will be probably people who have the cash reserves or the BlackRocks of the world will swoop in and take that property. So from now until, say, 5 years ago, there'll certainly be a role of private property that gets sucked into the system, the tokenization system. In the meantime, there's lots of mortgage property that can be sucked in immediately because so many people are fed up with their mortgage at this point, like me. I have a low interest rate mortgage. I have a huge equity in the home, but our payment, home payment is really minuscule. We couldn't afford to live on commercial rent right now, whether they're offering even for a 2-bedroom apartment for Pete's sake. So we're landlocked in our property at this point, and if somebody came along and said, "I'll make you the offer you can't refuse to get your title," I might take them on. No, I'm not going to be that. I'm not going to do that. Believe me. But I'm just saying, lots of people who have mortgage right now are willing to get out of it for anything. And if you move for another state, out of the community, you say, "Well, I'll rent my home." One home, you're gonna good luck with that. Maybe you will, maybe you won't, but usually that doesn't turn out for you very well. So eventually they'll probably get all this other property as well, but it won't be a slam dunk for the whole country. Boom, we're going to tokenize everything in sight. It's not going to happen that way.
Right.
Except for the New York Stock Exchange. They can do that.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Because
Yeah,
you don't own it. For one thing, they own it.
they own it,
I
exactly.
know.
Are there any more on, yes, okay. Well, yeah, because this other question I think is we've answered and it's kind of not relevant. So, can you expand on the 5 walls that are stated in Courtney's article of who owns the rails? Let me go pull those up. Yes. Let's see.
Yeah, I've got them here. You put them on the screen
Okay.
here. I've got them on my article as well.
Great.
The 5 walls are, and there's probably more. I just identified 5 initially. The first is the technology stack denial that we already
Yes.
talked about Pax Silica and how it's sliced off their piece of the world away from China. There was the physical corridor displacement because of IMEC. It's taking horsepower or functionality away from the BRI. That's China's answer to world trade. Then there's ally defection. We saw this now with India, with the UAE, et cetera. So the U.S. has been very shrewd to split these countries away from China. Energy strangulation. This is why they're going to buy oil from us, for Pete's sake. Who would have thunk?
Right.
Who would have thunk that the enemy of our soul would be buying our oil from the US of A? I'm being a little facetious here, but then you have the combat experience gap as well. Remember, we've had so many wars. We've been at every theater in the world fighting somewhere with our military. They're hardened. Our generals are hardened generally, except the ones that are funny boys, I guess. But otherwise, we have a battle-hardened military. China their PLA has not fought a significant conflict since 1979, for Pete's sake. That's all.
But I realized that just with this article. I had no idea. Yeah, that's crazy to think about.
That's why they can't project around the world. They don't
Right.
know how. You'd think with all the aircraft carriers that they have and the submarines, everything, You would think that they would be projecting themselves, the military power around the world, do stuff. They
Right.
don't do it though. They blustered. They said, we have all these, ship killers and blah blah blah, and there's it's a paper tiger, basically. So it doesn't. I'm not saying they're not potent. They could certainly mount a serious trouble for the West if they wanted to. They have lots of missiles, I'm sure, but they haven't been conditioned to assert themselves militarily. That we have totally beaten them to the punch, especially in the Strait of Hormuz. You might have thought that China would be sending warships to
Right.
Hormuz. You wouldn't think so, right? I mean, I would. Make sense to me if that's their supply of oil. Did they send warships to Venezuela when Venezuela was stolen from them? No, they didn't. How about when they got the Panama Canal stripped away from there? Total end to end. China's out. Did they send troops or Navy or anything to defend their interest in the Panama Canal? No. What can
Interesting.
you say? I mean,
Right. Yeah.
okay,
That's yeah. That says it all
I
to me.
know. Well, okay, we've had a wonderful time. One more
One
question,
more,
or
yes. How will technocracy affect the MSM alt news once it becomes fully fleshed out in the near future? Well, I think we've already kind of seen how that's operating. I mean,
already?
social media is a cybernetic algorithm, right? So it's
Yes.
basically just feeding you all sorts of, programming, and it gives you the feeling that it's specifically curated for you. Oh, we got a super chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Yes,
you.
Phantasm 000. Yes, thank you so much. We really appreciate that. I don't know if there was
Wonderful.
any question. No, just a few tokens. We like the tokens. We will play the game of our lives with them.
We used to make the joke when he said, well, I want some money, whatever. We used to say, just give me a few shekels. Now that's
Right.
a unit of currency in Israel. That has nothing to do with anything, but that's kind of what we used to say. Just a few shekels, that'll satisfy me. No, now
Mhm.
it's tokens. Just give
Tokens.
me some tokens.
Uh-huh.
That'll. Gee, I can't. Yeah.
Yes, that's where we're at. Yes. All right. Well, I think that did that wrap that? All right. Well, yeah, I think this was a great show. I thank you so
Amazing.
much.
Amazing. What can we show going out now? All the videos we had along the way, anything to show people? How about the one from the start? That was
To
pretty
recap,
amazing. Pretty amazing
I thought so
video.
too. Yeah, that was it was I make the joke that when you're dealing with we use these AI platforms to make these videos, that it's like dealing with the kid who just keeps on wanting to put his like hand in the candy jar. And I'm like, I have to keep
Yes.
slapping it. So yeah. But this one, yeah,
Well,
I think it
he-
was good. So
here's my motto. Here's my motto.
yes.
Use AI to destroy AI.
Yes, exactly. Use AI to destroy AI and destroy
So so
technocracy.
so I know. So go for it. Let's play it out.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching and listening. We don't have the date for next month yet, but we will be talking about the tokenization, the assets versus payments, and I think that's a great topic for next month. And we'll keep you posted on the dates for that. Thank you all for watching and listening, and thank you, Patrick.
You bet. We'll see you later.
The State Department has a formal name for the architecture being built right now: Pax Silica. It is a U.S.-led framework designed to secure the supply chains and physical infrastructure of artificial intelligence. The diplomatic negotiations happening between world leaders are over physical geography. They are mapping out who controls rare earth elements, trade corridors, and the heavy hardware that runs the code. This diagram outlines the 6 layers of that architecture. At the foundation are critical minerals and energy grids. Above that sits compute and semiconductor fabrication, followed by network infrastructure, consumer devices, capital allocation, And finally, the financial rails that process transactions. The compute layer relies entirely on accelerator and GPU hardware. This puts the corporate executives who manufacture and control that physical architecture squarely at the center of modern statecraft. Financing fabrication plants, data centers, and undersea cables requires immense funding. Asset managers and financial institutions provide the capital to build the infrastructure, and they establish the payment networks to monetize it. All of this builds a global operating system. The question is, what happens to the individual within it? We have to ask if this structure treats people as independent actors or as subjects to be managed. Human independence inside this new infrastructure comes down to a single word: property. This visualization shows how modern law defines private property merely as a title held by consent. This allows a person to own a fractional digital token that pays a yield, while giving them zero authority over the actual asset. A fund manager or an administrator sits in between. Sovereign property is something entirely different. It is unmediated authority over a productive asset. The owner has the direct right to use it, exclude others from it, and make decisions about it without a smart contract or corporate layer in the way. Legal title gives you a stream of passive income. Sovereign property gives you actual autonomy. Mistaking a legal claim for true sovereign ownership creates a blind spot. It allows the architecture of the AI age to convert independent citizens into managed tenants, while leaving them with the illusion that they still own their assets. History shows a recurring pattern with political concepts. A prestigious word is kept alive, but the substance beneath it is quietly replaced. The word still commands respect, even as it licenses a completely different reality. John Locke performed this operation on the concept of natural law. He stripped away its original meaning, which was rooted in the real natures and ends of things, and replaced it with a system based entirely on human will and consent. Because legitimacy became based purely on consent, the actual substance of property, which is control, could be legally unbundled. An owner could consent to sign away their authority to intermediaries piece by piece. Traditional legal frameworks were built to guard against physical seizure. When property is hollowed out through voluntary individual contracts, the alarms never ring because no visible coercion takes place. This liquidation of autonomy happens impersonally. Capital simply flows into the definitional gaps left by a system that only measures consent. This legal vulnerability maps directly onto the Pax Silica architecture. The new hardware and software layers require a system where ownership can be separated from control. Domestic legislation creates the legal framework for this separation. Bills framed as providing regulatory clarity for digital assets, like the Clarity Act, actually create the statutory machinery to make assets trackable, programmable, and censorable. Through tokenization, smart contracts, and click-wrap agreements, true ownership is converted into user access. This access is conditional, revocable by system administrators. At the top of this machinery, sovereign domain technocratic boards are being established. These bodies are designed to manage commerce and capital across borders, operating outside of existing frameworks like the UN or the WTO. People who fiercely defend the modern definition of private property are often defending the exact legal mechanism being used to strip away their independence. Autonomy is liquidated voluntarily. A nation of sovereign owners is converted into a class of passive rentiers, managed by a technocratic layer that controls the assets. The authors of the Declaration of Independence recognized this definitional trap. They chose the phrase, "the pursuit of happiness," instead of property, to anchor rights in human flourishing, rather than in a vulnerable legal title. They drew on an older philosophical tradition. Aristotle argued for autarkia, the material self-sufficiency of a household. He held that this material independence is the strict precondition for a person to stand as a free citizen, rather than a dependent. They relied on James Harrington's observation: political power strictly follows the distribution of property. If property concentrates into the hands of a few intermediaries, the regime becomes an oligarchy. The optics of democracy might remain, but the underlying power structure shifts. Finally, they applied Scottish common sense realism, which insists that foundational rights are objective realities. They are not constructs that can simply be redefined or contracted away by human will. Together, these principles prove that political freedom requires the wide distribution of real, unmediated property. Holding a fractional yield is not enough to maintain a free commonwealth. The tokenized private property driving the AI stack offers the population a stream of income, but it strips them of their independence, running opposite to the founder's design. Defending against this operation requires a conceptual correction. We have to start using the term sovereign property. Sovereign property plainly names the unmediated authority over an asset. It is a tangible reality that is too solid to be hollowed out by a fund manager or buried in a smart contract. The physical architecture of the AI age is rapidly locking into place. The groups who define property will dictate the shape of the regime. Reclaiming the true definition of property is the only way to ensure the people living on the rails of this new civilization remain sovereign actors rather than its permanent, managed tenants.